Hi, my name is Beth, and I don't really know what I'm doing. I think if I had a sitcom, that would be the intro. So, since this is going to be maybe like a knitting podcast thing again, I don't know. What do we call these anymore? I feel like that's changed. This is going to be a place where you can come and hang out and listen to what I've been knitting, maybe what I've been designing, and then maybe we can talk about it in the comments and have a little conversation. Oh my god, you guys, I'm so nervous. I just asked my 6-year-old for a pep talk, and that's not like a regular thing. That's not something that I've ever done before. But I told her what I was about to do, and I was like, I'm really nervous. And she just looked at me and laughed like she thought I was kidding. Because I think I'm pretty vulnerable with my kids, but I think they still think grown-ups like know what they're doing or something. So I asked her for a pep talk. I'm like, I'm really nervous. What if everybody thinks I'm not good enough, and what if nobody likes me? And she just said, Mom, you're the most amazing person in the world that I've ever known. Which I'm like, yeah, well, of course you're going to say that. But then I was like, what about my knitting? I was like, am I a good knitter? I'm asking my 6-year-old. And she's like, Mom, you're an amazing knitter. And I said, how do you know? And she said, you knit a hood for almost all of us in the family. Talk more about that later. You've knit so many sweaters. I really haven't. Just a few. And she grabbed this sweater I'm wearing and she said, did you make this? And I said, yes, I did. And she said, Mom, that's an amazing sweater. You're an amazing knitter. So what am I worried about? And if I'm worried about it, why am I doing this? I don't really know the answers to any of those questions. But let's talk about some stuff, and I'll show you some things. And we'll go from there and see what comes of all of this. I'm drinking some coffee. I hope you're drinking some coffee or something delicious. Okay. We're going to start this thing. I know you think we already started, but that was just, I don't. Here we go. I wrote some notes because otherwise this will get real rambly. I mean, it's already going. That's how this is going to be. If you struggle to follow along with someone whose thoughts are like this, pew, 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 I might not be the person for you. If you can handle that, we might be okay. All right. I've been knitting for a lot of years. I'm trying to do the math in my head, and it's just really not clicking with me today. But I'm 33, and I've been knitting since I was 16. So what is that math? Is that 17? Oh my god, what if I just recorded that I can't subtract? And now the whole knitting world is gonna know. Am I getting my phone to use the calculator and check my math and a double-digit subtraction question? Am I also a licensed elementary school teacher? These are questions that you may find the answers to as we go along here. Oh, thank goodness. So I've been knitting for 17 years. 17 years. Wow. Sorry, that's just, I've been knitting more than half my life. Oh, that makes me so happy. Okay, well, we just got to experience that together. All right, so I've been knitting for that many years. I learned from my high school French teacher. I also babysat for her. So one day, I don't even remember how we learned that she was a knitter. But we would like tease her about it, like she was an old lady. And she was like, no, it's great. You should try it. So my friend and I went to her house before our babysitting gig, and she had bought us some needles and yarn, which was so sweet. And she taught us how to knit, and I hated it. I think I've probably told this story before. If you have been here for any of the other 3 times I've tried to do something like this. So side quest here quick. First one was about, 11 years ago, because it's right after I got married, because I specifically asked for a little video camera as a wedding gift so that I could start a knitting podcast. And then I don't know, I just kind of freaked out, and not freaked out. I just stopped doing it because I don't know, self-doubt and things, and just like getting too sidetracked, and then you feel like it's been too long, and do I even go back and do it? I don't know. Okay, so that one fizzled out. That one was called All Wound Up. Then a few years after that, my sister and I started a knitting podcast called Foxes and Socks, and I think we went for a couple years maybe. And that was, we always had to do it over basically like a Zoom call. We were Skyping at the time, I think. I don't even remember. And then basically I started having children. And then, turns out that takes up like a lot of your time. The raising of the children. It's a very time-consuming situation. So it just wasn't, it wasn't working out anymore, really. And then so we stopped that. Then during the initial beginning of the COVID times, my friend Tracy and I, hi Tracy, because I know you're gonna watch it. I just love you so much. And we got to do this again. But I don't know. I didn't even tell you I was doing this, so I'm not trying to leave you in my dust. Just doing the random thing that I do every few years. Okay, back on track. So that was called the Serenity Podcast, and we started that, I guess it must have been 2020 or 2021. Today, I should tell you, is January 2nd, 2023, and this is not like a New Year's New Start thing. It is purely coincidental. My husband and I both have the day off because it's Monday, and since New Year's Day fell on a Sunday, whatever. So we don't have work today. That's the reason this is happening, because he can be with the 3 kids and the dog and be in charge of all that so that I can do this, because as you can imagine, 3 kids and a dog, this could not happen probably unless it's like after everyone has gone to bed, which is likely going to be how any future content is going to come out, will be after my kids are in bed, because like I said, they take up a lot of your time, and I mean that in a loving way. I totally love my kids. I do, obviously. I hope that's obvious. I always worry that I gripe about my children, and then people are like, oh, why'd you even have kids? That I don't know. None of us knew what we were doing. Nobody knows how to raise children. I love them. It was a good choice. God, you guys, I'm so weird. Is anyone gonna watch this? Getting way too caffeinated. I think it's almost noon. It is 12:30. Yep, still drinking coffee. Okay. How far in am I here? Oh, goodness gracious. 10 minutes, and I've told you nothing about my knitting, but that's okay, right? There are going to be little bits of real life here, because I live a real life, and as much as I would love my knitting life to be like the 90% of my time, it's really like very, 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 very slim amount of my actual real life time. So other things are going to come up from the other whatever percent, if that makes sense. Okay, so I told you I'm looking this way because that's where my notes are. Trying to get back on track, stay on the track. Fourth time's the charm, maybe, with whatever's happening here, because again, I've tried this podcasty kind of sort of thing thrice before. I feel like I've always kind of struggled to find my place in the knitting world. I don't even really know what that means. I just feel like I'm so immersed in the knitting world. Like I'm constantly reading about the things and looking at the patterns and knitting the things and hearing everybody's opinions about the things. And yet I like never have found the right format for me to contribute in any kind of consistent way. And that's for a lot of reasons. Like I have a full-time job and 3 kids and friends and parents and siblings, and I've got like a fair number of places where my attention needs to be. I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? There's gonna have to be a lot of editing here. Finding a place. That's what we were talking about. Okay, finding a place. So, I guess what I'm trying again, I don't know how this is different than what I've done before. I think doing this by myself will make me more likely to be active in commenting and going back and forth with you and things. I've not been good about that in the past, and I don't like that. I don't like that I haven't been good about it. So I think the accountability piece, me trying to do this by myself, will hopefully help me engage with people. Because I just love the knitting world. It is such a huge, huge part of my identity, really. I mean, not to get like too deep here, but it's been a huge part of my life for a very long time and helped me through a lot of really hard times and brought me to some really amazing people who are really important to me. So it's kind of a big deal. Okay, so I'm hoping whatever it is I'm trying to do here, or whatever this leads me to next, is going to be the right format for me to engage with you more. That's what I'm trying to say. And really, truly, you can thank, if you're happy that I'm here, you can thank Stephanie. Edible Thoughts Makes Stephanie. Probably a few months ago now, she put out a video, a episode of her podcast where she talked about, or she's been kind of putting out a question that people can then answer to kind of go back and forth in the comments, kind of a thing. And one of her questions was, what object represents where you are in your life, or like what object what image would represent you, kind of a thing. I can't remember the exact wording. And I immediately had an image in my mind, and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to go back and forth, but I don't just want to type it. I want to talk about it. So that has been percolating in my mind for a couple of months, because I am not a quick decision kind of person about certain things. So I've been thinking about this a lot. As rambly as it all may sound, and as random as it may seem, there's a lot of thought behind everything that I'm saying. It's just thought in a very kind of pattern. So the image, and she, I think, talked about a clock. She has kids similar ages to mine. Her youngest is the same age as my oldest, and then her older is a little bit, like a couple years older. So anyway, it's still in that very busy little kid stage. Not quite, I still have a toddler and a preschooler, so I'm like really, really in it. She's in it, but not as, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so her image was a clock of like, just, okay, we got to get this kid here and this kid there and do that thing at that time and make this appointment at that time and all those kinds of things. And my object, which I have over here, is and it's not exactly my object today, but on pretty much any given day, is a 2/3 full cup of coffee that is cold. This is nice and warm because I just made it. Also because I have this fantastic and ridiculous little coffee mug warmer that one of my teacher friends gave me a few years ago as a gift. It's keeping my coffee warm because she knows that I have a problem. Both a problem in how much coffee I drink and in how often it goes cold. Again, lots of reasons for that. But just I feel like I have this image of this like slow, cozy, wintry life that I want to live. And in that world, I always get to drink my coffee when it's hot or at least warm. And like I think that should be my real life. But that is not my real life. My real life is very much running from kid to kid, putting out the fires, making the food, cleaning the things, trying to clean the things. Nothing's ever actually clean, so then you kind of feel like, rah! And that real life cup of coffee is just so often, and I feel like it is representative of this phase of where I am. It's like, okay, well, it's 2/3 full and there's like creamer in there, so I'm not going to like dump it and start over with a new cup of coffee. So I'll just pour this piping hot coffee into my like mostly cold coffee. So then you have this like lukewarm coffee. Well, then that only goes cold faster. So you're just constantly playing this game of trying to catch up with your coffee, and you never ever can. I hope that is coming across the way I mean. Can you tell that I have a little bit of anxiety? Yeah, that's a thing that I have. Particularly social anxiety, which makes things like recording a video of yourself and putting it on the internet kind of conflicting in my brain. But here we are. Okay. So thank you, Stephanie, for inspiring me to come back and just for being your awesome self because you're amazing. If you don't watch Stephanie, you should. Her podcast is wonderful, and she and I do not live that far apart, and I really want to get together with her, and we've tried it before and it didn't happen because COVID-y things happened, and it makes me sad, but it will happen one day for sure. Okay. In the meantime of Serenity podcast, pod fading, I believe. That's what Tracy calls it, right? Pod fading. And this starting, I have actually put out a couple of knitting designs. One of them came out actually like a little over a year ago, and is called the Winter Windows Mitts. So those are here. They have a really cute little lace design here. Actually, I think I'm wearing it on the wrong hand. There is a right and a left because of how I wanted this to line up. I really wanted it to be like on kind of wrapping around the front and the back. So you can see the little lace detail there, and then it's also on the other side. And I do something kind of fun with the increases for the thumb so that the little pattern can continue. So it didn't have to be like a totally plain little thumb. It got to kind of continue the design. These were published in Making Magazine's Winter Gifts collection. Not from this past year, but the year before. And now I did finally... I could have listed it independently or individually like a while ago, and I don't know. I struggle to get all the things done that I would like to get done. But anyway, it is now available on Ravelry and on my website, which is deciduousknits.com, because that is the name of my knitting design adventure. Sorry, my screensaver just came up. I guess I've been talking for quite some time. Yes, so deciduousknits.com is my website. This pattern is there, as well as on Ravelry. I think I'll maybe do another separate video another time, going more into the whole process of designing those, kind of like what the original looked like, or my original when I proposed the pattern, and that kind of thing, because I could talk about it forever now, and I've already talked a lot, and I could just go on all these side quests for a very long time, and I'm not going to do that today, hopefully. The other pattern I have available, which just became available to like everyone, is called The Little Things. Nope, it's called It's The Little Things. And I designed these for the Stress Knits, her Advent calendar, which is her last one, which is, I don't know, I felt really like special to be included. Yeah. So I was able to design some different little things, well, they are little things, that you really can use for like a variety of different things. So one of them is an orange slice, and this is on Stacy's favorite base, and I held 2 colors together for each of these. So it's more of like a DK weight. These knit up like super, super fast. And then I have some instructions for how to make it look like an orange slice. So there's that. There's a teeny tiny little mitten. It's teeny tiny, like a hat for my pinky. Teeny tiny. There is this adorable little moon. This one was a beast to get the way I wanted. So there's a couple extra tricks that I include to get that looking nice in the pattern. I also am considering putting out some videos on that, but I just have many more ideas than I have time, so I'm trying to be realistic also with what I'm capable of doing. There's this cute little rainbow, which I have it connected at the bottom, and then I had it before as like an ornament, and then you can put some beads to kind of like weigh it down, because you can see it doesn't really want to just like stay tidy. So you could put a string through the center here, and that would keep it together, and then you could weigh it down with some beads. Sorry, I'm like, I'm flipped, so I'm getting used to that. So that's another one. And these can be ornaments. They could be a garland. These ones could be coasters. I mean, they're really just these cute, fun little things that truly take just a small amount of your knitting time, and you get to have something that's done. I made this teeny little hat with the cute little folded brim. I made a bunch of those in varying of colors of the greens. These are so awkward to show you. I will try to post some pictures on Instagram so you can see them a little better. This one is kind of a, it's a kind of like a nice warm brown, and then the orangish color is not coming up the way it is in real life. It is magic. Here are a couple of medium greens. Here's a light green and a dark green. And this is kind of a fun way too to play with the way that you marl colors together. For example, I have all these green little hats. This one, the greens were very, very, very close. Like you might think that's just one colorway, but it's actually 2 different colorways. Then this one is much more of a drastic contrast, because I used a very, very, very light green and then a darker green. So the light green almost even looks like a white, but it's actually a green. And then here I used a medium with the dark. And here are a couple where there's the lightest with one of the medium ones. Sorry, I had a slight pause there because I thought I heard someone come down the stairs. And when you're sitting in a room talking to yourself, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to myself, feels a little weird. So I paused it. Okay. So I was just telling you about the hats. So and I didn't say, this one on the rainbow, the yarn is held single. Same with the teeny tiny mitten. The little hats and the orange slices are held double, and the moon also is held single. So the double ones go really, really, really quick. I mean, these little hats take like no time. And if you make them in like all your nieces and nephews' favorite colors, or your coworkers, or yourself, I mean, you could have like cute little ornaments, cute little garland, cute little whatever. Hat for a Barbie? I don't know, maybe. That was weird. Okay, then the last one was a little leaf, which is very simple, but very cute. And I should have put more thought into how to hold these to present them to you, because I feel like I'm just fidgeting with things and not actually showing you. And I made the leaves into a kind of garland that is really tangled up in a bunch of stuff. This is an extremely professional place. So you're not seeing the whole thing, but this was just a way that I wanted to show of how you can use a minuscule amount of yarn, like 1 or 2 grams. I shouldn't say that, maybe like 2 or 3 grams for these little leaves, but not much yarn. And you could easily knit one of these a day if you have 30 minutes or less, I would think. Now I say that and I'm doubting myself, but they're pretty quick. I think they're a reasonable thing to knit if you wanted to keep up with an advent. And then in the end, you have this cute little decoration. I really need to get mine like actually finished. It's kind of like, it's not all of the colors. And I just haven't been organized in getting that put anywhere since I took pictures of it. Okay, so that's available on Ravelry and on my website. I've really been struggling with trying to figure out I want to make my patterns available to really anyone who wants to use them. So at the same time, it is a fair bit of time and work to write the pattern, come up with the design, all those things. And if people can and want to pay for that, I want that too. Like, it is a fair amount of work. Though I should say both of my patterns I've already, in a way, I've already been paid for them. So now they're just kind of continuing, if that makes sense. So my thought is, and I haven't done this yet, so if you would go and look right now, you wouldn't probably see what I'm talking about, unless, it's like a few days from now or years or whatever. Like how I go from days to years. I mean, there's a few other intervals of time in there, but just skip those. Sorry, my thoughts are all over the place today, and I hope it doesn't make this so completely, like, way too random for you to even watch. Okay. I truly completely forgot what I was saying. This happens to me a lot. Okay, the pricing of patterns. I got back there. I have these notes right here. Why don't I just look at them? Everything is here that I want to talk about. Okay, so here's the thing. I want people to be able to have my patterns if they want my patterns. I also want to be respectful of designers whose income or supplemental income or that designers who can't just list everything for free. And I don't want to like undermine the knitting designers by offering all of my things for free and then making people think that that's the norm or the standard. If this makes any sense, give me a thumbs up. That was a total teacher move and I can't see your thumbs up, but I appreciate your thumbs up if you put your thumb up. So here's my thought on how to navigate this. And I would like your feedback if you are willing and able to give it. I'm thinking about listing any patterns I make for $6 and having like an all-time coupon code for getting that pattern for free, and a coupon code for getting that pattern for half price. And I would have that in the pattern description. I would have that on my, Ravelry store banner, designer page banner thing of saying like, hey, full price is this much. If you use this code, it's $3. If you use this code, it's free. Is that a reasonable thing to do? Is that still undermining the other people? Should I do something different? Do you have thoughts, opinions, ideas on that? I would love to hear them, truly, because I mull these things over in my head, usually so much that I never make a decision. So then, in the end, the decision is that it just didn't happen. So, very interested in your thoughts on that. But I think that, to me, that seems like a reasonable thing, but there are probably pieces of it that I haven't thought about that maybe some of you have, and your input would be valuable to help me get a good idea. Okay, so that's that. Gonna try to just cruise through a couple more things because I do want to show you some stuff, but this has been like, oh my gosh, 7 minutes. So I guess only like 30 minutes. I'm also curious to hear what length of videos you like. Less than 30? More than 30? I don't want to be annoyingly long. I feel like short is better than long, but I always end up going long because I just ramble. The next thing I would like to show you is my sweater. So this sweater, there's kind of like a saga behind it. This is the Nuna jumper by the Petite Knitter, not to be confused with Petite Knit. And her name is, I believe Wei Chen is the way I believe her name is pronounced, but if I'm wrong, terribly sorry. Would love to be corrected by someone who knows 100% for sure. And she is the most amazing designer. I want what I picture her life is. And that's probably, you know what I mean? Like, it's cozy and it's so cohesive and just so like calming. Go check her out if you don't know who I'm talking about, and you will see what I mean. And I wanted to show you, or I wanted to read to you her little blurb on her website because I just think it's cool to have a little more insight into where this came from. So she says, hello, I'm Wei Chen. I live on an island in the Canadian Arctic archipelago, and I design size-inclusive knitwear. Occasionally, I make knitting accessories. In our little, cozy northern home, my partner Theo and I embrace slow and quiet living. Our designs are inspired by the beauty of this place we're so lucky to call home. So, you should totally check her out. She's lovely. Her designs are amazing. I am going to step back and just like move around a little bit so you can see what this looks like on my body. And then I'll come back up here and talk about it because I don't want to talk close to the microphone and then be far away from the microphone and talk. And then, I want to try to keep it as consistent as I can. So here you go. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too awkward for you. I'm not great about posting photos anywhere, and I think seeing this on a moving body is a completely different experience anyway. So that's kind of why I wanted to do that. So this pattern originally calls for the same color at the beginning. So it's a top-down colorwork sweater. So you knit from the top down, like I just said. So I don't know why I'm saying that again. But their original has the same color up here as the rest of the body. And I had seen a different sweater that really inspired me that had more of this kind of color block on either side of the color work, and I wanted to do that. So let me tell you about the yarn. I used DK weight yarn. That's what the pattern calls for. DK weight sweaters are so much fun to knit. I live in central-ish Minnesota, so it is cold here all the time. I mean, our winter, I guess in my mind, I consider winter from November until April. And there can be some fluctuation, but like that's winter. That's most of our year. So I get a lot of use out of sweaters like this. Okay, so I used Stress Knits yarn for most of my colors. This is Dahlia. This very lightest color in some of the zigzags up here, and then part of the design here is Grubby. The main color, which is also kind of a lighter color, is Dried Lavender for the most part. And then this very dark, deep red-brown color is Earl Grey Fiber Company, or Earl Grey Yarn Company. I feel like Fiber Company, but I'm not sure. And in their DK, and the colorway is called Wingback. So this sweater has kind of a long creation life. So when I first started making it, it would have been 2 summers ago, I think. Yeah, I think 2 summers ago. It's not really that important, but I started knitting on it. My family went on a trip to Alaska, which is not like an everyday kind of occurrence. Like, this was a huge deal for us to be like going on this. It was like a big deal. So we went on this trip to Alaska. My husband's aunt lives there, and we stayed with her, so then we didn't have to pay for anywhere to stay, which makes a huge difference when you're traveling. And I started the color work of this sweater on the way there, which was not a very good idea looking back. The color work was a lot going on, and I was truly like scrunched in this position between 2 men, so one of them being my husband and one of them being a complete stranger, and both like relatively tall, big men. So, you know, it was like this. It was so uncomfortable. And trying to knit color work when you're like trying to knit like a T-Rex is just not a productive situation. But I knit on it while I was there, while we were driving around, while we were at his aunt's house. So I feel like I have all of these very visual memories tied to this tactile thing. And I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand about knitting, at least for me, is like I plan what project I'm going to bring somewhere based on a variety of factors, right? Like, I know we're going to have a lot of time. I know parts of this are going to be simple and parts are going to be more complicated. I'm always going to have these memories attached to this tactile thing that I can touch. Like, it's just like a straight shot to that memory if I look at the sweater and touch it and think about it. I think if you're here listening to me about this, you probably kind of understand what I'm talking about. So I worked on it then. That fall, went to Portland, Maine with my BFF, and which again, also, these things were very close in time, but like not I'm not a world traveler. That's not something that I'm a super privileged person, but that is not, I'm not at that level of just hopping on a plane and going wherever. That's a big investment of time and resources for me at this time. Anyway, but I went to Maine and worked on this also there. And I must have worked on it at home in between. But see, I don't really remember that as much because I have these really big trip memories attached to this sweater. And somewhere along the line between my house, I've narrowed it down to these places: my house, my parents' house, my sister's house, a cabin that we stay at once a year, that we like rent, it's like a Airbnb type thing. My husband's aunt's house in Alaska, some random place in Alaska, the house we stayed in Maine, or some random place in Maine. So in one of those 8 places, I managed to lose 2 skeins of Stress Knits DK in the dried lavender colorway. I cannot tell you how much I have torn apart my house, my parents' house, our vehicles, my sister's house, because it just has to be somewhere. I think I'm beyond the point of I can order more. I have this sweater made out of blah blah blah. It has been bothering me for, at this point, 2 years. But I lost it. It's how do you lose 2 skeins of yarn? But I did. And I even looked back at my history, did I really buy as much as I thought I did? Yes. Yes, I did. So somewhere in the world, I hope some knitter found 2 skeins of Stress Knits DK in the dried lavender colorway, and they are just knitting it up and loving every stitch, because that's what I would have done. Anyway, the real bummer of the situation is that I ran out of the dried lavender colorway. I am not entirely sure where I ran out. So it would be, you can actually see it on camera better than in real life. Somewhere, I think around here, I started alternating between one strand of the Stress Knits yarn. So, because I had kind of a little ball left over, but I clearly wasn't going to make it. So I thought, okay, well, I'll at least gradually blend to this other color. And so actually down here, this is Malabrigo sock yarn in the colorway, I want to say Pearl, but now I'm not sure. Oh, and I forgot to write that in my notes. And it is held double. So you can kind of tell. But I mean, really, in the day-to-day, I would never notice. So, I was really happy that I found some way to salvage this, because I wanted this sweater. I love it. I've been wearing it a lot. I make a point of telling people at work that I made it, because I really like the reaction of oh, you made that? What? And I'm maybe I can recruit some more people to be knitters in my day-to-day life. So anyway, absolutely love this sweater. The designer's amazing. The dyers of the yarn are amazing. The yarn is amazing. This isn't the yarn it called for, but it's the yarn that I chose to use. This is probably one of the most neutral things I've ever knit. I typically am more bright and bold and saturated colors, because that's just what I'm drawn to. So that's the stash that I have. So this was a little bit out of my typical color zone. But at the same time, I have a lot of clothes that are this brownie pinks and mauve kind of colors, because I really enjoy them. So that's this sweater. I'm now going to tell you really quickly that I finished this adorable hat. Sorry, screensaver came up again, and then that makes me nervous. So I knit this hat, which I just love. I have the yarn label right over here. Sandnes Garn Cashmere Alpaca. I got this a long time ago, and I actually got it at like it's not a thrift store. It's like the kind of place that buys out stores that are closing, or like places maybe where things have been damaged, or I don't even really know how it all works, but they had a ton of like nice high quality yarn one time a couple years ago, and I bought a bunch of it. So I had 2 skeins of this. Oh, look at it. It's so cute. I love it. So I put on one of these ridiculous pom-poms. I always attach my pom-poms with a button. So I just have this random orange button, because most of the pom-poms that you buy, it's fluff, will have like a little elastic loop, kind of like a hair tie. And then I just pull the loop through the very tippy top of the hat, loop it around the button, and then the pom-pom is pretty secure, but also can be removed if, I mean, this is a gift, so if the person doesn't like the pom-pom or wants to wash the hat, or, you know, their dog gets a hold of it and chews on the pom-pom or whatever, it can be removed. This is a pattern from, here, I'm gonna, oh, I love it. I wish I could have made it a little slouchier, but I used pretty much exactly the 2 skeins of yarn. Oh, it's so cute. It's for my friend Bailey, and she's going to love it. It's from the Salt and Timber book by Lindsay Fowler. Her design company is called Larkspur Knits. She's amazing. She makes the most beautiful, like, elegantly simple, everyday knitwear. I hope that sounded right, because her patterns are just lovely, but they're not overly complicated in terms of like technique, and they're just so wearable. Like, I feel like I could knit every single thing from this book and wear it regularly. So this is the firewood cap. And I made these little note cards with a bunch of stickers and stuff to use as a bookmark for my projects. Here is another picture. And so it's basically this like kind of like ribbed fisherman's cap type thing, but also has these kind of textured stripes. So I think what's cool about it is you could either choose to wear it this way, where it's kind of tight like a beanie, and then you have that extra warmth over your ears, because where I live, hats are for warmth as much as they are for looking cute. Or if you just wear it this way, I mean, those textured stripes kind of disappear. And then you could have a slouchier version of the hat. Slouchy. Oh, it's so soft. This yarn is amazing. Now my hair looks even flatter than usual. You don't care, right? You're cool with it? I'm not gonna judge your hair. You don't need to judge my hair either. Okay, can we just be friends about it? Okay, cool. All right. I'm working on mainly one project right now. It is a test knit for Emma of Bloom and Create. I've test knit for her before. In fact, I was thinking about it earlier because I think that's how Stephanie of Edible Thoughts Makes, how she and I kind of found each other, was through doing a test knit for Emma. And so that just makes me kind of happy that all these different little pathways have linked me to all these wonderful people. So I am testing her Sarin sweater, and it is a top-down sweater that has a colorwork yoke. I'm not very far at all, so I don't have the most exciting progress to show you. I just have the very neckband, and then I've done the short rows for the back, and I need to knit a little bit more, and then I get to start the colorwork, which I'm so excited about. So so this yarn is Stress Knits yarn, I really like Stacy's yarn. I really like Stacy. In the Old Pine colorway, this is the favorite base, which is a fingering weight base, and it's held double, so it's coming up as a DK. I also like that doubling a fingering weight yarn using like indie hand-dyed yarn, that you can marl it this way, and it kind of makes alternating colors a little bit easier, I think, because I'm just going to knit with like these two for a while, and then I'm going to swap out a different one to have with this one, and then I'll swap out this one with another one, and just so there's kind of more opportunity for the yarn to gradiate. Is that a word? If it's not, who do I need to talk to get that to be a word? So this is this. I am going to knit the main part of the color work with Spin Cycle Dream State in the Truth Bomb colorway. I have debated between Truth Bomb and Ghost Ranch several different times, but then whenever I see the other one sitting out, it's actually... It's that yarn right there. Should I go get it? I'll go get it. Hang on one second. Maybe you can help me decide. Okay, so I've been debating between Truth Bomb and Ghost Ranch. And there are lots of layers in there that, you know, you can't really see. This one is much more like autumn rainbowy, but this one has these like teals in it that I think would be such a cool contrast. Okay, so the third color is La Bien-Aimée in their Corey worsted, and this is the colorway Rust. It is gorgeous. So we have this like kind of cool minty blue green color with some kind of like scummy speckles, and I mean that in the best possible way. And it's either going to be with Truth Bomb or Ghost Ranch. I think this would be a better contrast because I worry a little bit about these like pinky orange pieces blending too much with the rust. But if I start from the outside of this cake, I don't think those colors are even going to interact. Like, I don't think they're going to touch each other. I don't think the rust and the Spin Cycle yarn, the Truth Bomb, would come in contact until probably this like neon green little bit. So then maybe it would be, I don't know, my heart I think wants this one. My what everybody else brain, I think when I think, oh, what should I do according to what the rules say and what other people think, I think it would probably be this one in terms of like the contrast. But my heart is like, look at that rainbow magic. So what if it's a little melty? So, opinions welcome. Probably going with this. I think this was my original, and it's the one I've come back to like, I don't know how many times. I've truly swapped it in and out of the bag. But I believe I'm getting to the color work today, so I might need to make that decision before I can actually listen to all of your opinions. But maybe you have other thoughts about what I could do with this. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So that's mainly what I've been knitting on. I've not had a ton of knitting time because we just had family here for the last 2 days. We celebrated Christmas late. Late on my side, really, really early on Matt's side. My husband, Matt. So we had this really kind of nice big chunk of time where we weren't stressing about, you know, the food and the plans and the packing of the bags and all of the things and the wrapping and the whatever. Okay. I told you about the things I was going to tell you about. Would love to hear what you think about pattern, knitting design, prices, what's fair, what's reasonable, etc. Would love to know what you would like to see here from me. In my day-to-day life, I do a lot of parenting, I do a lot of teaching, I do a lot of technology stuff with teaching and learning focused. I'm a technology integrationist at the school where I work, which is actually a pre-K through 12, very small district, all in one building. So I have kind of a unique look into education. I used to be an elementary school teacher, burned out of that hard. That's another reason why Tracy and I think, stopped podcasting, that third one, because that year of teaching was just, I won't speak to Tracy's experience, but my experience was, it's just too much. There is no adequate way to explain what it is like to be a public education teacher without just doing it. I don't know how to explain it to people. It's a kind of emotional labor that you can't comprehend unless you do it. Like, truly, I don't know how else to explain it. Anyway, all of that was to say that now I'm the technology integrationist. So I basically get to find cool tech things, help teachers with cool tech things, etc. And so I have some really nerdy knitting things that I do. I use Google Keep for a lot of my different knitting thoughts and ideas, because I have way more thoughts and ideas than I have time or projects. So if that's anything you're interested in, or if there's anything else, if you see anything back here that you're like, ooh, what is that interesting thing, or that interesting thing? What's all that stuff behind you? I can tell you about that. So, let me know. I'm a very logical person, but I'm also a very emotional person, so if you leave me mean comments, that's gonna hurt my feelings, but I'll try to not let it eat away at me. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll hopefully see you soon.